that the government's interests are not necessarily the same as ours. In fact, are rarely the same as ours. Because if you think that the government's interests are the same as yours, then you think, well, if something is going wrong, it must be that they made a mistake because they really care about us. They don't care about us. The government does not care about its own soldiers. If it did, it would not have sent its soldiers into the quagmires of Vietnam and Iraq. It would not be taking the wealth of this country and squandering it on $500 billion this year on a military budget. That's a hard thing to grasp, that the government does not have the same interest as us. It's hard to grasp because we grow up in a culture where the language of the culture predisposes us to think, yes, we have a common interest. The Constitution starts off in a preamble, we, the people of the United States, establish this. It wasn't we, the people, who established the Constitution. It was 55 rich white men who established the Constitution. I know you're not supposed to say anything about the Founding Fathers. They're our fathers. We're all one family. Not so. The Founding Fathers were slaveholders and merchants and bondholders, really. And sure, they set up a government that was more democratic than other governments of the world. They set up a government that was independent of England, but did not set up a government that was a government of the people. The interests of the government and the interests of the people right from the beginning were not the same. And that same difference of interest has continued down to the present day. All through look at the history of legislation in this country. It's class legislation. It's legislation that has always benefited the upper classes. There's always been subsidies for the corporations and subsidies for the railroads. They didn't call it welfare. When the government began helping poor people, they called it welfare. When the government gave hundreds of millions of acres of land to the railroads, they didn't call that welfare. But the legislative history of this country is a history of legislation favoring the rich, to put it bluntly.